What's up, everybody? How's it going today? Sorry we're not working out today. Had a little bit of a equipment malfunction. I'm not the most delicate when it comes to my electronics. I tend to beat them up and overwork them. Today's going to be an interesting conversation, though. At least I hope so. Yeah, David, I can't. I don't know why. It's just, I don't know if it's like, I think it's just my personality. Like, when I buy something, like, happy birthday, Doug. I abuse it, right? Like, if I'm going to buy something, like, I don't keep it, like, in a nice, neat, like, try to take care of it. Like, I buy it, and I use the hell out of it. Like, the more worn and beaten it looks, the better it is. Doug, thank you for stopping by on your birthday. Glad you're choosing to be on the channel. Love it. Greetings from Ecuador. Greetings from just outside Boston, USA. Oh. So here, let me show you what I did. I got the cable here, so I got to move out of the screen to think I got to get it to focus. But here is the micro HDMI cable that is now missing the entire top half. And so, for those of you guys that don't know, I do most of the Photoshop graphical stuff for Fuji Sports, product photography, that kind of stuff. But terribly, David. I treat my car terribly. But I love to have like everything like at my fingertips, right? Like I'm a very impatient person, so like I want my stuff to just run. So Photoshop, Illustrator, like 100 tabs in Google Chrome, all at the same time, Final Cut, Premiere. Doesn't matter, I want it all open. I don't want to wait for it to open. And when I want to do a project, I just want to hit the button and I want to do it. Well, my computer started freaking out, and every time I would open it, it would just take off like an airplane. So I just switched up my computer for another one. So I'm in like the process of like getting all of my, stuff from one place to another. And it's 4 terabytes is what I keep on my computer at a given time. Just with all the videos and all that kind of like DVD content, all that raw footage just lives on my hard drive. I have an unlimited Google Drive, but it lives on my hard drive just in case I want it at my fingertips. Because if I got to download it from the internet, I'm annoyed it takes too long. So I got into this like cable management thing where it was like, I want it to look clean. I want it to like everything to have its spot on my desk. I like being in my office. I love working all day. There's no windows, so I don't get distracted about, what time of day it is. I have no idea. It's super bright in here. This is all natural, just like my lights are on. Like there's no extra lights like I had at my house to like light me, right? This is just normal. So I started zip tying. I bought like these colorful zip ties, and I started zip tying all the cables, and I got everything to fit perfectly. And then the camera was like a little like off. So I tried to move it, and then snap, the cable broke off inside the HDMI port on the camera. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to buy a new camera now. There's no way that it didn't break the connection. I won't be able to plug a new one in. So yeah, that happened today. So we're not filming downstairs because that cable is now attached to my desk because I need it day in and day out, and I don't have the patience to pick up my station from one place to another and put it in the club. So hopefully by tomorrow, ordered one on Amazon. Hopefully it shows up, paid extra for shipping. We'll see if it gets here. Otherwise, we'll do another one of these. Maybe I'll have a guest on and we can do another like back and forth Q&A. Yeah, but Jonathan, the idea is to like not have to move. Like I have 2 capture cards, one for my office, one for the dojo to like do all the filming. So all I got to do is take the camera off, attach it to the one downstairs, boom, we're ready to film. And yeah, I'm a Neanderthal. Like I just can't do it. It is what it is, you know? But anyways, yeah. So that happened. But hopefully, so here's what I'm thinking, everybody. Here's what I'm thinking as far as filming in the future. So I got the Rode Wireless Go. So hopefully the audio is better in the dojo. I tried to make it as good as I possibly could. But my dojo has 30-foot ceilings. So like the sound just like bounces around everywhere. And I got it as good as I could. And I don't actually have to listen to it, so I don't hear necessarily what it sounds like from your guys' end. But hopefully that wireless mic, I got some feedback from some other people about like where to put it. And what we're thinking is if I put like a little pouch right here on my shoulder, I should be able to set that wireless go right here and then hear me no problem. And it's like a low traffic area for judo and BJJ, so as we're moving around, nothing should brush it, nothing should hit it. And hopefully we get a good, clear audio rather than that loud, annoying hiss. Because the only way to fix that is to actually go into like Premiere and, fix the audio. But we can't do that when we go live. And I'm not going to go live to take it down to then fix the audio and then put it back up. That's just too much work. As much as I'm impatient, I'm also very lazy. So... Greetings from Brazil. Carlos, how's it going? So yeah, that's the plan. Chris, I am working on having Jimmy on the channel. We have one major flaw. Jimmy has a fairly large family and they all have internet. And even when we do work video calls, his internet just cuts in and out all the time because people are always streaming videos, watching things, checking them. Jimmy's doing other things on his computer. So I'm super nervous about having him on just to have him cut out all the time. Because when we're watching videos and doing things, it takes up a lot of the bandwidth for the internet. Even though my internet is fine, his isn't necessarily that great when it comes to streaming video, especially streaming it live at the 1080 that we do here. So that's my consensus. I think I'm going to wait for me and Jimmy to be in the same room. That way we can watch one screen. You guys can see both of us together. Even if I have 2 cameras, one on him, one on me, just so I know that the internet doesn't cut out when we're watching things. I think that's my plan when it comes to Jimmy. Just to make sure that I just don't want to, I want to make sure that when he talks to you guys, everything comes through clear. You guys see everything, hear everything. I don't want it to be a headache for everybody because he gets cut in, dialed in, like his voice comes in choppy. We want to make sure everything is smooth when he does it. That's all. But he's definitely on my list of people to get on here. Who else should we have on here? Anybody else in particular that you guys would like to see? Richard from New Jersey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm thinking that the live Q&As, I should probably have Kayla on again. We should do another one with Kayla. Maybe we'll watch one of her MMA matches. Danaher would be good. Danaher would be interesting. That'd be an interesting conversation, me and him. Hello from Sweden, Gabriel. Man, it is late or early for you. In Sweden, what is it, like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. for you in Sweden? Yeah, Doug, I haven't had Kayla on in a while, so I'm thinking Kayla would be a good one. Hey, Ed, how's it going? I actually, believe it or not, I think I prefer John's gi classes versus his no gi classes. Maybe that's just because, and I like no gi more than I like the gi. I think that's just because when I'm doing no gi with somebody, because usually in jiu-jitsu when somebody is, and you guys will experience this in judo too, right? Where if you're more talented than somebody and you're going up against somebody in judo, they tend to like stiff the arms and like run away and you just feel like you can't get close to them. Well, in gi jiu-jitsu, people do that all the time. They like stall out, they like move around, and like you feel like you're always fighting out of getting stuck. And in no-gi, that doesn't necessarily happen to that kind of degree, where in no-gi, you always feel like you're fighting out or fighting into something. You don't really feel confined where not much is happening. It does sometimes, like in some of the like pin series and inside sankakus and those types of positions, it can. Or like if a guy like throws in a body triangle from your back, you could feel kind of stuck and they couldn't do much. But the speed for no-gi is what I really like because you can move quickly. The gi is a little slow for me. So while I like it from a technical standpoint and it's a lot of fun, when you run into a player that's like very tactic-y and like, oh, I just want to get an advantage, or you can tell they're training with the idea of keeping points, it's just not fun. Like, I do jiu-jitsu for fun. Like, I like sweeping, passing, trading positions, getting swept, catching, submission holds while I'm getting swept to like better my position, or catching like an X guard on when I land, when I get swept from spider guard so that I can sweep back quickly after the points are scored. Like, I love the back and forth of it. But when people stall it, it just ruins it for me. I remember when I was a brown belt and I had really only trained at Henzo's and I hadn't really been anywhere else, I went all the way out to Atos to get ready for a brown belt Grand Prix at like an MMA Super Show or something. And I trained at Atos, and like the style there, it really was like disconcerting for me because it was so situational, and it wasn't that the training was bad. It wasn't fun because you didn't have that back and forth. Like, I didn't feel like I got better at jiu-jitsu. I felt like I got tougher. And I didn't need to be tougher. Like, I didn't need to know how to fight out of 50-50 for 6.5, 7 minutes in a 10-minute round. Like, to me, I feel like I'm wasting my time. And you're wasting your time because for me, it's either use it or lose it. Don't just hold on to it because you can. But obviously, there's like different styles for everything. So, yeah, I mean, I just like John's teaching in the gi because he teaches that like transitional side of jiu-jitsu and like how to use certain things to gain better ground rather than like the end-all be-all. It's not just about sweeping and passing. It's about bettering your position or securing a better position. Kesting would be good, Jonathan. That would be interesting. Water fountains at Atos are juiced. You said it, not me. Wow, 3:40 a.m. Whew. That's an early morning, man. That's such an early morning. Listening in from Korea. Nice. So, one of the reasons why I threw this topic out here is like, I think it was in the Angie Q&A. I'm like 90. I might be able to get Iliadis on here. The only problem with Iliadis is he's in Uzbekistan, and like that time difference might be a challenge. It might be like a 10 a.m. like live stream or something to catch him at night, me in the morning, without one of us, needing to be up at 3 a.m. But it's doable. It just might not be the best time to stream it for everybody to catch it. But anything is possible. Oh, Richard, wow. That's a name I haven't heard in a while. John Finch. I liked it, because again, like, it was nogi, and those guys were like go-getters. It was like, let's just win. Let's just kick the crap out of each other and get better. I loved it. Taurus, no, I never used Ogoshi in big competitions. At least not in like the traditional sense where like you go around the waist and you pick them up. I was more of like a Georgian style grip where I'd grab the belt and then throw my hips across. Big whoa, that's a good point. The internet might be worse in Uzbekistan. Hi, Travis. Lots of coaches from lots of different clubs really think I'll be great at judo. Man, let's see. Time will tell. Just keep putting in the work, man. Anybody can get there, right? Anybody can get good at judo. You got to put in the work. And you know what? If you're not that athletically gifted today, and you're not that talented, and you're not that strong, it just means you got a longer road to travel, but it doesn't mean you can't travel it. You can always get to the other end. Some people it's just more difficult. Oh, I got my coffee. I'm ready to go. Perfect. Make sure you build that isometric strength though. Don't just power lift and power clean and feel like you got to move a ton of weight, man. Work on holding weight too, man. It'll do a lot for you. Marcos, do I think kata is a waste of time? No, I don't think it's a waste of time. I think people who are really, really good at judo are good at kata. They may not know the actual like forms and steps to kata, but they'll be able to perform it rather quickly once they know the steps. Because here's a good example. How many of you, right, judo or jiu-jitsu, it doesn't matter. How many of you have ever had a problem where like your partner just doesn't get it, right? Like you're trying to do this move, but they're just not like moving in the right direction. They're not giving you that feel. You can't get that back and forth in order to get that technique to work, right? I think we've all experienced that like across the board. And that's where kata comes into play, because kata doesn't necessarily teach you how to be a good tori, but it teaches you how to be a good uke, right? A good training partner, because it teaches you how to move with the throws and demonstrate proper technique when you're doing falls, which in turn allows tori to look better and learn faster. I really wish jiu-jitsu had a kata that we could run white belts to like purple belts through, because I feel like it would help a lot of white belts, right? Just being able to learn how to take like a spider guard sweep fall, or like how to react from half guard. Just because like that first initial thing, I do it all the time in my class when I'm teaching, right? Where I'm like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get up from our knees from half guard with an underhook, and then my white belt always falls to his hip because he feels like he's supposed to get swept, because he doesn't understand the back and forth. Like, we haven't swept you yet. You're supposed to recover. And I feel like a kata would help teach them that ability to know when to take a fall and when not to. And that's what kata is really good for. Evan, man, I have had some bad ones. And when I coach, I make sure to put whoever I'm coaching, like whoever's doing the offensive move, I always have to factor in how good can it really look while they're participating based on how good their partner is. Some people have awesome partners that make every technique look amazing, and some people, no matter how good their technique is, it looks super sloppy because their partners just aren't that good. So be a good partner at the end of the day. Focus on it. It's not just about you. Okay, Jason Wong. How did this being an Olympian is an important topic come up? Here we go. Okay. We're gonna start this conversation right now. Okay, we're gonna start right now. So timestamp this if you want to like ignore all the stuff that went before. We're at the 20-minute mark. Okay. I absolutely hate when people use their titles as like a notch in their belt to tell people that they are better than somebody else, or that you should listen to them because of a title that they have, right? And for judo, specifically for judo, we're talking judo here because it really matters in this sport. When somebody says, I'm an Olympian, to me, so what difference does that make? It doesn't mean anything in the sport of judo. And people look at me, they're like, well, it means you're one of the best. It in no means, absolutely no means you are one of the best judo players in the world because you call yourself an Olympian. Like, it doesn't do anything, at least for the sport of judo, right? And I probably should have like come up with some slides or something to like show you guys what I mean. Let me scroll down here really quick. So let's take a look at this, for example, right? What's a good name? Like, I get that like everybody wants to be an Olympian because they feel like it's this really cool thing. And people always ask me like, you know, what's it like going to the Olympics, right? And like, let's just have this conversation, super candid, right? Let's real talk. Okay, we're not like cookie cuttering this for like the TV shows or like for sponsors or for anything like that. We're just down and dirty. What's it really like going to the games? It sucks, right? It's really annoying. It's really frustrating. Some people have a great time doing it. Some people think it's absolutely miserable. It kind of like varies, right? But here's a thought for you. Put this into perspective, okay? There are a little over 10,000 athletes in the Olympic Village. 10,000 athletes. And I believe, this isn't a quote, I'm just trying to go off memory here. I believe there are just under 500 medals passed out at the Olympic Games. 10,000 athletes, 500 medals, okay? And sorry, just kind of like scrolling through the comments here. I should probably put this somewhere where it's a little bit more visible for me, but I'm in my office. I haven't figured out the camera layout or nothing yet. So when you go to the games, right, track and field is a great example, right? Let's say I run the 100 meters and I run against Usain Bolt. Have I ever actually ran a time fast enough to beat Usain Bolt? Probably not. I would say that for like 80% of the field. So then what are they doing at the Olympic Games? Right? They're there to represent their country. They're there to do certain things. But me as somebody who is actually geared up, put their entire life on the line to win an Olympic medal, I have to go into the village where 80% of the population doesn't have a prayer of winning an Olympic medal. Zero chance of winning an Olympic medal. Well, I can't say zero because flukes do happen. But it's like a giant party central, and I'm not there for that. Like, I don't want to risk my life's work because the people staying in the room next to me have no chance of medaling, and they're there just to party, free of charge, right? Like, that's frustrating. That's annoying. And it's one of those things where, like, at the end of the day, unless you have that medal, like that thing, or like you fought for a medal like I did in 2012, like you've reached that upper echelon where like that medal was really within your grasp. Being an Olympian apart from that, 100% useless. Like, I hear people all the time go, but I'm an Olympian. Who cares? Like, what difference does that make? right? Like, let me ask you this. Here's a great example. Who's a better judo player? The guy that went to the Olympics or Hashimoto from Japan that doesn't get to go because Ono's going? He's not an Olympian. World champion, Asian Games champion, number 2 or 3 in the world, whatever he is. He's not an Olympian. So why does the guy who just gets to go to the Olympics, why is his status better than somebody that has actually proven themselves on the world stage, won high-level competitions consistently, but doesn't get to go because he's number 2 in the country? From the guy that's probably Olympic champion, where if he didn't go, he'd probably win it, right? Or at least a medal. Versus the guy that has no international medals, right? But gets to call himself an Olympian. It's just one of those things where, like, it really just, like, it gets to me. It's like that BJJ guy who's like, I'm a black belt. So, if you can't defend it against a purple belt, who should I be listening to? The purple belt or the black belt? Probably the purple belt, right? All that, like, time and grade stuff, at some point, you depreciate as a person who can physically do something. And it's important. It's important. It is your job as a high-level practitioner in martial arts to train the next generation. And if you don't do that, right? If you don't train that, like, next person to follow you along, when you get to be like 50, 60, 70 years old, you're not going to have anybody there who understands your philosophy, who understands, like, how you put things together to help them, to make them, and you grow that, like, following of people that just understand what it is you're trying to give. Yeah, Chris, there's a great example, right? Like, man, there's just so many, like, oh, here's a great one. Here's a great one for all you judo guys out here and girls, like all you judo fans, right? Here's a great one. Mark Housinger, Netherlands, right? Like, Olympic champion, Olympic whatever. I think he's medaled at like 3 Olympic games, but went to 4. But, like, he couldn't get, like, a world title or medal at the Worlds, or maybe it was the other way around. I can't remember. He had something where, like, he hadn't won, like, one of the titles, and then he finally eventually did it. But, you know, I feel like a lot of people in countries where judo's not really like a staple, like they're not contesting for Olympic medals, they tend to praise people that are Olympians, right? Because they're the best in their country, so when they come home, you should be listening to them. But at the end of the day, right, like, I don't want, especially in the American judo system, in like these smaller countries, don't put those people on some type of, that's what it was. Somebody should actually look that up. Look up Mark Housinger's results and see which one it was. I can't remember. But if you're from like a country like the United States and somebody comes up to you and you're like, hey, I'm an Olympian, right? This is why you should listen to me because I've done these things. I'm a national champion. Like, what does that mean? Right? Like, what does being a world champion in BJJ really mean? Right? What really solidifies that legacy, and it was like the one thing that, like, I really tried to do as an athlete. It was like my goal. Consistency. I wanted to be consistent. It didn't matter that you had this one thing. Like, here's an argument that happens all the time amongst judo players. Which one's more important, a world championship or an Olympic Games? Which one's harder, right? And for me, it was always the Olympics, because not everybody is healthy and ready and fully prepared for the World Championships. You would think so, but at the end of the day, like, the prep that goes in before it, it's a little bit different than the Olympics, right? Everybody over 4 years gears up for this one day. Not everybody gears up for the World Championships, right? It's got a different level of commitment where you're planning out for 2 years which events you need to go to. Nobody necessarily breaks down the events in terms of like the World Championships. Some do, but for the most part, everybody sits down and they're like, hey, at the Olympic Games, we need to do this. And some people actually dial back their training before the World Championships so that they can ramp it and they can plan those times to make sure that they're ready for the Olympic Games, and they plan that upward tick, even if a downward tick happens at the Worlds. So yeah, I think it was a Worlds that he hadn't medaled at. Maybe that's what it was. And then he finally came back. It was like late in his career, he finally like got a world medal, I think. Yeah, just watching the chat here kind of talk about it. Kind of reading through it here. So when we're talking about I believe Flavio bronzed in Athens, 81 kilos. Recon. But what is his world medal count? How many world championship medals does he have? So when you're from like a smaller country, I did this in my career, which is one of the reasons why it really, really annoys me, because I feel like it cost me my Olympic prep in 2008, because you put the Olympic Games on this pedestal like it's this great thing that you're supposed to accomplish, and it's something that like you can hang your hat on and like, what's the word I'm looking for? Be proud of. But what a lot of people don't understand is not all of us, like, there's a difference between somebody who directly qualifies for the Olympics, somebody who qualifies seeded for the Olympics, somebody who qualifies because doubles are removed, or somebody that qualifies just because they're the wild card in their country, right? And even to that point, a lot of the divisions in judo are weaker than others, right? Sometimes somebody in like a 73 kilo weight class could have, for a round number, let's say 1,000 points, but then miss a direct qualification, where somebody in, let's say, the heavyweight bracket might only have 800 points but be ranked 16th in the world, and then therefore directly qualify. And it's like, who's the better judo player here, right? The guy who wins more often but is required to need more points because of the competitiveness of the division, or the guy that is directly qualifying gets to call himself an Olympian, right? We have to be careful about where the title comes from without understanding the actual results, right? Like, just because you're a coach of some team doesn't mean you're qualified for it. Doesn't mean you're qualified to really give complete information on the entire sport, especially without the backing of having produced an actual athlete or having done it as an athlete, right? Because not everybody can physically do everything, but that doesn't mean their knowledge base and their ability to train others doesn't happen. Yeah, Jason, there's nothing wrong with like being a wild card and going to the games. I'm 100% for it. I'm not disrespecting those people. What I'm saying is how you use it and how you use the titles to project yourself. Like, I just want to give a little bit of understanding to like the community as far as like what does it really mean, because who you listen to and who you take advice from, you should open your minds to really understand who's giving you that advice and what is it really worth and how can it really help you. Because a lot of times I get a lot of advice from people that aren't Olympians, that are just everyday judo players, because I understand judo. And a lot of times, even though they aren't the greatest judo player, a lot of times their ideas and their philosophy behind why they do certain attacks, they're great. They might not be able to physically do it, but conceptually it's a solid plan. And then I, being the person that has those physical gifts, I can execute that plan. So it's more about just that trade-off of information where you put more information on, or more criteria on information given rather than title to information. No, Corbin, it doesn't take away from the prestige of being an athlete. I'm saying by being an Olympian, it doesn't necessarily qualify you any more so than anybody who hasn't been to the Olympics. That's all I'm saying, right? If somebody has won Pan Ams, medaled at the Worlds, medaled in Paris, medaled in Russia, didn't get to go to the games, and then another guy goes to the games and he has like the Olympics on his resume, who's the better judo player? The guy who just got to the games, or the guy that has all the other titles but didn't qualify? And you'd ask yourself, well, how did so-and-so qualify for the Olympics and then the other guy didn't? And a lot of times it could be due to injury, right? 73 kilo guy from Canada, Arthur Margeliadone. I probably messed up his last name. We'll laugh about it when I see him if I did. Right? Broke his wrist. He was qualified for the games. Broke his wrist and couldn't go. Canada was like, we're not sending you because you can't compete. So he's not an Olympian. He didn't get the Olympic suit, the Olympic gear. He didn't get to walk out in opening ceremonies. He didn't even leave Canada to get to go. And now he's ranked 5 in the world. And he actually qualified and was supposed to go. But now he's not an Olympian. So is he less qualified as a judo player to give advice, even though he didn't get to go? Yeah, Sasaki, he is. He's super talented. He works hard. He trains hard. He listens to his coaches. Again, I see all these people online, and I hear people, specifically in USA Judo, talk about like, oh, I'm an Olympian. Oh, I'm this. Oh, I coach so-and-so who does this. I'm qualified. And it's like, but where are the athletes and where's the information coming from? Right? It's no different than nutrition. So in nutrition, for example, anybody can give you nutrition advice, right? Any nutritionist can. They can say, eat this, eat that, eat this, do this. But it takes a serious professional to actually understand the levels that your body chemically produces and how your body breaks down certain things to figure out what type of diet you can actually go on to actually lose weight, because how your body chemically reacts determines the type of diet you should be on if you actually want to lose weight, right? And then on top of that, there's another level of professionalism where they actually take real life into consideration on what can you actually do and maintain in your lifestyle so that you can stay happy and stay on the diet. And that's where you reach that top level of professionalism where it's not just cookie cutter. It's not just, hey, here are the levels, so you should do this, go. They actually take a moment to learn about you as a person and what you're really trying to do, to give you the best possible advice so that you can live the healthiest lifestyle. Whereas, and you have different levels of coaches, right, that can give you different levels of results and different in-depth types of knowledge. And being an Olympian is not one of those criteria that qualify you for any of those stats. Christopher, oh God, question. Oh, good question, Christopher. Where's the question? Is it the who's your favorite judoka to watch compete and why? Is that the question? Big whoa. Yeah, and it was something that I went through as an athlete because I didn't understand this, right? I thought if you had a job, right, and you're labeled as a person in this job, that means you're qualified. But that's not true. People get jobs for a lot of different reasons, and people cookie cutter their way to like high level jobs. And I went to a nutritionist one time, and I got the top level advice. They printed off everything. They handed me everything. They told me what to eat, what not to eat. And I was laying in bed drinking hot lemon water for weeks. I was eating couscous, plain chicken breast. I was weighing everything. Everything was measured out. I was cooking everything. And I hated life. I hardly lost anything. Like, it was detrimental. And from that point on, I was like, I am never going to see another nutritionist again. That was terrible. I lost no weight. I suffered for weeks. And I hate the taste of lemon water. I was like, unacceptable. It's not worth it. I will cut all the weight in the world before I ever see another nutritionist. And then I met Rob Skinner. And Rob works for the USOC, who was in charge of combat sports and cutting weight sports. And he had worked with NFL teams, and he'd worked with special forces units in the military. And he had a lot of like real world advice. Not like, hey, the textbook over here tells me what to do, so I'm repeating it to you because I know what the textbook says. And I remember having the conversation with Rob on a trip, and I was like, Rob, I'll listen to your nutrition plan, but if you can't tell me what to eat out of a 7-Eleven, then it's complete waste of my time and yours. It's not worth it. I'm not going to cook. I don't have the time or the energy. I don't enjoy it, and I never want to do it. Right? It's like, where can I go eat where I can buy my food quickly, it's healthy, it meets all my nutrition requirements, and I actually enjoy eating it, and I can find it anywhere in the world. Which means that when I'm on the circuit for the IJF, my nutrition needs can be met where my diet doesn't change. Because one of the things that you're going to run into as a diet person, right, is, yeah, I'm not kidding, Chris. We had this conversation. Is when you change your diet, your body like does this chemical thing where it can be damaging, especially if you're actually in a reduction for cutting weight. And we had this conversation. Me and him talked about it. We discussed it. We found a place to eat, and I ate that thing until I medaled at the Olympics. So, and that's what I mean by like level of professionalism, where like as a coach, right, and being an Olympian, you've got to be able to take a step back, look at your athlete, how physical are they? How athletically gifted are they? How intelligent are they? And then we can start to answer questions like, what techniques should you be doing, right? If you're not that athletic, you should probably stay away from throws like Uchimata that take a lot of talent and finesse and feel. Maybe your thing is like Sumiyo no Soto, because you're less athletically gifted. You don't have that athleticism to bend and move and snap as well as somebody else. And it's blending that judo to give the athlete the best possibility for success, right? There's different levels of coaching. Five Guys, Austin. In and out, not a fan. I don't care what any of you say from the West Coast. Five Guys, all the way. So when we're talking about, and I think a lot of people put a lot of stress on like performances over certain events. Gordon would be a great example of this, right? Gordon was like, in the jiu-jitsu world, Gordon was a superstar before he ever won a world title because he was beating world champions. And that, to my point, says a lot about, you know, who John is as a coach and who Gordon is as an athlete, because they cared more about beating the people than winning the title. The title didn't matter, right? It's how consistently can you win and how many people that the community recognizes as the best can you beat. And when you can do those two things, the actual like thing you're trying to win isn't as important, right? I was able to stay inside the top 8, top 5, top 10 for so many years because I focused on consistency. Like, let's just medal. Let's fight for medals. Let's just keep fighting for medals. Let's win for medals. I didn't care that it was a gold, silver, or bronze because I felt like all that pressure where like the community might hate me or think I'm not as talented because I won a silver instead of a gold puts a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress on people. And at the end of the day, like, I don't think the community really cares. I really don't. I think in the moment, everybody thinks that the Olympic medal is like this like holy grail for sports, right? And it's not. It stands for nothing. It only matters. The Olympic medal only matters when you have the surrounding medals and like the surrounding performances to back up your having that medal. Which, you know, for example, we could all sit here, right? Like, I fought the 2008 Olympics. I could not, gun to my head, name the Olympic medalist of 2008. Couldn't do it. I could tell you maybe the ones from my weight class, but like across the board, couldn't do it. You know why? Because I don't care. It's not that important to me. Right? No different than everybody else. I couldn't tell you all the Olympic medalists from 16, and I medaled there. Right? Even as fans of the sport, like, and these athletes who have done these crazy things that have won this medal, it doesn't matter because the athletes that really stand out to us are the ones that have the consistency and the medal count behind that Olympic medal or that world championship. It's not about the athlete that doesn't have anything that came away with one medal. They're forgotten about because they didn't leave this lasting mark of consistency. Would Danaher of judo be Inoue? No, I don't think so. No, Chris, there definitely is. There definitely is. But to my point, Chris brings up a good point here. Let me see. Can I add this question into the broadcast? Yeah. So, right here, Chris has basically asked, well, how do I move this? I can't. There we go. Okay. So, Chris has basically, you guys go away, has said, is there nothing to be said about being the best for that time, for that day? 100% yes. That does exist. But at the same time, like, let's say I'm running USA Judo, right? I'm running USA Judo, and I got to pick a coach for the national team. Do I pick the guy that medaled at just the Olympics, or do I pick the guy that won Pan Am's 5 times, 3 world titles, won Paris, or do I pick the guy that won Pan Am's, qualified, and won the Olympics, but the other guy lost? And maybe he took like a 9th or a 7th, or maybe he went out first round. Right? Like, who do you pick? Who's the more qualified person as an athlete to take on that position? Yeah, Theodore William. Great example, right? Great quote. Let's throw that in here. Yamashita said it. You're only champion for a day. Consistency, guys. Consistency. I will always pick a consistent person that is tilted across the board, that's kind of even, because he'll be the best person to serve multiple athletes at all times. So, again, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, was just like, hey man, put things in perspective. And what really brought this to my attention, and what I was getting at earlier on, and I kind of brushed over it, was when I did the Q&A with Angie, and somebody had brought up a question about, hey, I'm looking for a quality judo place to train in Central Florida. And I said, you know what? Like, I don't know anything about Florida judo, so I let Angie take it. And Angie was kind of like thinking about it. And then they kind of expanded on the question. I'm in the Tampa, Orlando area, I think they said. And then she heard Tampa and she goes, oh, well, Radi is in Tampa and he's an Olympian, so you should try there. And it's like, that thought, I kind of like brushed it off because, it's her opinion, right? I know nothing about Florida or who's there. But somebody by the name of Chris Round got into the comments and flat out accused me of putting everybody down because they felt like I had brushed over Radi's like accomplishments in the sport of judo, and like the other coaches in the area as not being quality. And it's like, when we're talking about quality judo clubs, it really depends on where you are. Are you a grassroots yellow belt that's looking for a quality place to train? Because that's a different type of judo than your guy who's trying to win a national championship, which is a different type of judo from a guy who's trying to win Paris and go to the Olympic Games, right? All of those things, when you talk about quality, they all require different things and they're measured differently, right? So quality to me is, hey, I'm going to win the Olympic Games. Where do I go? Like, I probably don't go to Florida at all because that's not my style of judo. It doesn't fit my needs when we talk about, like, how do we win an Olympic medal. It might fit somebody like Angie's that has a little bit faster, a little bit quicker pace because that's the style of judo that they have down there. And it's one of those things where, like, why does it have to be that because some of these people have Olympic titles that they should already be put on this pedestal about knowing judo and how to project information? That's 100% irrelevant. Just because you qualified for the games doesn't mean you get to be qualified and hired level than the guy next door who could be a better coach, right? Especially for a grassroots level player. Sometimes the people who have reached the Olympic Games aren't the best types of coaches for beginners because we have trouble like dumbing down judo and getting it into a 1, 2, 3 step that is easy for beginners to learn because we think in complicated like 5, 6 step processes. And so like it just begs the question where there's no right, there's no wrong. It's just think about what you're saying and where you need to go and what's best for you, right? One of the things I want to get on here and talk about in a live scenario, like unscripted, uncut. Let's talk about like where's the best place to train and how do you pick a good club for you? And should you actually leave the club you're currently at because it's not filling your needs of what you need in order to progress as an athlete, judo or jiu-jitsu, right? Chris, exactly correct. As a chess coach, I've seen high-level grandmasters try to teach kids not good. Yeah, they're like, why would you make that move? And you're like, because you're a beginner and you're allowed to make that move. I think I said it in one of my judo analysis videos where I was like, guys, you got to understand that when I'm looking at the video and I'm seeing a brown belt fight a black belt in a local tournament, I coach them differently than had I watched two national level athletes duking it out in the finals of a national championships, because they're at different stages of their career, which means they need to focus on different things. And it's one of those things where like you can't do it all, and it's one of those frustrations that I have in the judo community where people don't want to champion like the individual market, right? Like my YouTube channel, the way you guys are here, this channel is geared towards the recreational, grassroots, intermediate level judo player. That's it. It's just enough knowledge and just enough experience where the beginner gets his eyes broadened, and the intermediate judo player that knows a little bit goes, oh, I didn't think about that, and then they can get a little bit better. But you want to start talking like advanced topics and like flinching and doing that kind of thing, and like different twitches and different setups, and like how do you sell being able to throw ippon seoinage a minute before you need to be able to do it? Like what type of techniques do you need to do and fail at to better open up the throw you're really trying to do? Has anybody ever thought about that? I do. When I grab a gi and I go, man, I feel like I could throw this guy with Osoto. So for the next minute, I'm going to do this series of attacks so that he plays defense to better open up that Osoto. And we don't talk about like those types of things on this channel because it's not geared for it, because it doesn't help you guys get to that next stage. If you go too advanced too quickly and you don't build that foundation, you're going to hit a ceiling and you're not going to know how to get past it because you haven't been educated through that system. Chris, I'm glad you like the instruction. So that's, and I don't mind being like the champion of that era, right? Like I don't understand why somebody is insulted when you go like, hey, you're the best grassroots judo coach. Like why, like what is wrong with that? At least that's better than being like the average like national level coach. John, this channel made me realize I don't know my ABCs. Oh. I do, but I don't understand it. You know, like I'll be the first one, right? Just because I'm seeing the comments come through here about like the importance. I will be the first one that tell you there is no such thing as wrong, right? In jiu-jitsu, in judo, there is absolutely no such thing as wrong. To me, in my system, in my style of judo, and how I do judo, and how I perceive judo as a whole, there is very much wrong things. But at the same time, I will be the first one to tell you that if you do something wrong, often enough and consistently enough, you can turn it into a strength. Right? Where you can basically take a rule and flip it on its head and say it doesn't matter anymore that you do X because I'm so good at this that defense doesn't stop it. And a great way to think about that for some of the jiu-jitsu guys in here that probably don't understand what I'm talking about is look at Bernardo Faria, right? I remember the first time I ever trained with Bernardo, I had no idea who he was, okay? We were training, and I was working out with them, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's go. I think I was a brown belt at the time. I had like a few months. It was like a Saturday, and we were working out, and he's a deep half player. I didn't know that at the time, but I knew a little bit about deep half. I was a brown belt, I knew what I was supposed to be doing, and he goes deep half. So I go underhook on his arm, and I'm like, okay, I have him. He can't do anything from here. So he's feeding the gi, he's doing his thing, but I have the underhook. And sure enough, he basically does a Turkish getup with me sitting on his chest. And he sweeps me. Round ends. Okay? A few minutes later, the round ends. We fight for the next few minutes, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I go to one of the black belts on the side, and I'm like, hey, who the F is this guy? And they're like, hey, he's pretty good, huh? And I was like, yeah. And I go, when I'm in the he's in deep half, I'm supposed to go underhook, right? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, but it doesn't work, because Bernardo got so good at that movement, defending that technique, that he built some muscle that most humans don't have in order to counter that defense and still be able to apply his technique. And you can do the same thing, right, in judo, where you could do something wrong to me, but if you're so good at it, I'll have to respect it and then play some sort of defense using my own tactics and my own strategies that fit inside my system of judo. And so that's all it is. Messing up newaza is very wrong. Again, my system. But you see the Japanese, right? They mess up newaza all the time, right? Pure basics. Like things like a 3-stripe white belt wouldn't miss. But again, it's not needed because they've perfected the standing to such a degree that the newaza isn't as important. The problem that in turn lies with a lot of people from other places is they try to mimic what the Japanese do without the Japanese resources. And then in turn, they don't do enough judo to get that good because they don't understand how much judo that athlete is actually doing. Like Ono became a professional athlete at the age of 12 in the sport of judo. He left home and dedicated his life to judo. Like, not a lot of people do that. A lot of people leave home at 15, 16, 17 years old to dedicate their lives to the sport. And you miss all those extra years. Chris, yeah, Koga throwing off the wrong side is now normal, right? It's just that standing sail, like off the other side, forward, doesn't matter. Right? But hey, everybody starts somewhere. Oh, my back. So that's pretty much where I'm getting at with this is, you know what? The Olympics is not the end-all, be-all. Don't set it as the goal that you need to hit and accomplish to feel like you're an accomplished judo player. Focus on your overall career so that when you look at it, when you sit back and you look at it, right? When you go on judobase.org.com, whatever it is, you go on JudoBase, and you type in the name and you look at like Olympic medals, world medals, Grand Prix medals, continental medals, and you see that little square there, right, for results, how many different areas are filled out that says, man, I'm a good judo player? Or is it completely blank with like a 1 medal count? Right? I'd rather have the guy that has that whole thing filled out with medals all over the place than the guy that has the 1. Right? Especially when you look at their career as like a whole that spans like 2, 3, 4 Olympic Games. Starlord 28, yes, I have rolled with Gordon. I'm from Henzo's in the city. Austin, that is a almost impossible question to answer. So here, let's add this in here. So this is Austin's question here, and it says, who has reached the highest level of judo skill-wise in your opinion? And there's so many different variables and factors and things that can go into this, that a lot of what we see, right? I would put my money to say that the best judo player in the world is not somebody with a world or an Olympic gold medal. Because there's so many people that just can't compete because of anxiety, stress. They just don't perform. But when you put them in a dojo where it's fun and like there's no stress, there's no cameras, there's no referees, they are talented. They just don't compete well. And those people might have reached that higher level of skill. Just because you don't compete well doesn't mean you don't know judo, right? We have guys here that train amazingly. Like they'll train with world champions, Olympic champions, and they'll do well. They'll even score. You take them to a local competition, they may or may not medal, right? It's just one of those things. Starlord 28. I use weave passing from my knees and knee cutting. Steve, Hank Grohl is a great example. Super great example, right? Look at this. Hank Grohl, no gold, world, or Olympics, but he is consistent. Lots of silver and bronzes. And I believe he has 2 Olympic or 3 Olympic medals. 2, but at 3 Olympics. Like super consistent athlete. That's what you want. That's what you should be striving for right there. No, I have never rolled with Jordan Burroughs or Kyle Dake, but it'd be fun to. I think it would be a lot of fun. Ooh. So yeah, just like take that Olympic thing with the grain of salt. I remember, I think one of the reasons why I competed so well in 2016 was because before the Olympics ever happened, I remember sitting there the summer before. It was like May-ish, like April, May, and I looked at my career and like I sat back by myself and I was like, you know what? If I didn't win an Olympic medal, would I feel accomplished as a judo player? Or do I have to have it? And I remember thinking to myself going, you know what? Like, I've medaled here, I've beat this person, I've won this tournament, I've accomplished this, I've fought for an Olympic medal. If I don't medal at this games and I go out first round, I am completely happy with where my career is. And that is what's important for everybody. Physically strongest judo player I have ever faced would be Iliadis. By far. By far. That includes a lot of the 100-kilo guys. Although, I've worked out with Kripalik, and I have a feeling he is stronger, but he didn't use it, so I can't say his name. But I have a feeling he is. We did some grip fighting rounds in Abensburg one time, and I was a little like, I'm stuck. Chris, I think Churchishvili was super confident before that match. Like, super, super confident. What was that question? Is there somebody in the judo world with the 2? 81 kilos. Not really. I don't think any of the 81 kilo guys were really that strong. I guess the strongest ones were probably the most awkward. But that's not really strength per se. So if I had to pick somebody that was extremely awkward for me, Ewan Burton would be one. He was awkward and he was strong. He was definitely a good gripper. Yes, I have trained with Dave Camarillo before. Elmont was strong. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll go with Elmont for that. I forgot about him. Yeah, completely forgot about him. He would be the strongest 81 kilo guy for sure. In the weight room and on the mat, I believe. He was super hard to get close to. I'm glad you like the topic, Sasaki. And again, it's not to put anybody down, because there's something that you can learn from everybody in judo, right? At some point, somebody has some little bit of knowledge and information. I remember being a U.S. athlete when I was traveling around the world all by myself. I would listen to all the coaches, and even though you can't understand it, you would try to listen and kind of gauge their responses and their enthusiasm as they were coaching their athletes to get an idea of like what they were teaching, what was right, what was wrong, where the movement's going, how are they moving, how are they doing all these different things, because you can always learn something from somebody, right? And it's your job as an athlete. Like, one of the things I always praised myself on as an athlete was whenever somebody was trying to give me information, I always took it. Like, yep, okay, great, yep, I'll get to work on that. And a lot of times, even if I never applied it, I stored it in my bank, right, in my toolbox, because at some point, I may need to go in there and bring it out. Where I feel like a lot of people nowadays, right, as you're trying to pass on that knowledge, they tend to like go, nah, that doesn't help me, and they shoo it away, and they don't take the time to actually practice and learn it well enough, at least, to keep it in the toolbox to bring it out at a later point. And sometimes some of my Newaza techniques I actually got while I was in France training at INSEP, because they did these like 5-station groups, and one of the coaches taught a front headlock, and I was like, I can do that. I love that. That is super simple, super easy. I'm going to steal that. And I still teach it to my camps. I tweaked it like a little bit. I added some things to it, some different variations, but the core concept came from a guy that was teaching it to the French national team. And the kicker being, if you ever go back and watch any of the French judo players, none of them use it. But I did. Right? So it just goes to show you that, like, if you just take in this knowledge and don't just brush it off and you keep it in your bank, like, you could pull it out at some point. It could be super useful. That doesn't fit my game, bro. Thanks, though. Dude, I hear that all the time. Like, nah, it doesn't solve the problem I have today, so I'm going to ignore you. And stupid. In the words of Big Jim, stupid judo. Gabriel, I have never trained with Nagase. I did compete against him once, and he beat me 4 Shidos to 1. But I also separated my ribs the match before, so that doesn't really count for much. Matthias, can you send me a link to the match? Send me a link in an email to videos at judosilencer.com so that I get it, and then I'll download the video from YouTube, and then I'll do a video analysis on his gripping. Just let me know what you're asking about specifically. Like, can you do a breakdown of his gripping in this match, and then I'll do a video analysis for everybody and release it on a Tuesday. Yeah, Sasaki, to my point, right? To my point, because you had said earlier that your coach, your national coach, wherever you're from, I'm not sure, never went to the Olympics, but he's super talented, and he has a keen eye on picking out issues with your judo easily. That's my point. Like, being a good coach comes with practice, right? Where if you practice at being a coach and you develop and you learn how to coach kids and you learn how to coach teenagers and you learn how to coach young adults and you learn how to coach adults, you learn and learn and learn. You're always learning. You'll be better at it. The Olympic title, like that I'm an Olympian, doesn't qualify you as being a good coach. What qualifies you as being a good coach is having coached. right? And I think a lot of athletes forget that. Just because you can do doesn't mean you can teach. Even throughout my athletic career, I was always running camps. I was always teaching classes. I was always helping other athletes, always teaching, always learning, because not everything is physical. A lot of judo is mental, right? So try this out. Try this out. All of you people here, you want to get better faster. Here is your pro tip for everybody listening, okay? And hopefully everybody like cuts this out or like timestamps this and shares it across YouTube. Try this. I want you to do this with your friends. You don't even need a coach, okay? Just grab 3 friends. 3 friends that know judo or 3 friends that know jiu-jitsu, and try this, okay? One of you is going to use the other guy as a partner. So 2 people are technically teaching. 1 person is teaching. 1 person is being the partner. 1 person is listening. Okay, everybody got that? Super simple drill here. What I want you to do is I want you to teach the person watching you. Teach them anything you want, right? It could be Ochi, it could be Osoto. If you're doing jiu-jitsu, it could be a basic armbar from close guard. Okay, it could be a knee cut, it could be a choke from the back. Doesn't matter what it is. But this is how you get really good really fast in martial arts. I want you to record this. Better yet, pull out your phone, put up the recorder, okay? And I want you to record yourself teaching them, okay? And then I want your partner, the guy who's listening, right, who's technically acting as the student, he is then going to, when he's done, he is going to repeat everything you said. Think about that. Because the number one thing since I've been coaching that I see from athletes across everything I teach, from jiu-jitsu to judo to wrestling, doesn't matter what it is, right? I teach you something. I teach you 5 steps to do a knee cut pass. The second I say, okay, go practice, I slap my hands and we go. By the time you have walked over there with your partner, if I followed you and said, hey, teach me, you couldn't do it. And if you can't do that, if you can't actually verbalize what it is that the coach articulated to you on how to do it, how do you expect to actually physically be able to pull those steps off? So one of 2 things is happening. The first thing, which is probably the most obvious for all coaches, is your athletes are just dumb. They just can't get it. Right? Like they're just like, why can't they do this? That's option number 1 from the coach. Like, my athletes are just stupid and they're never going to get it. I have to teach this same thing like 6 times before they get it. From the student's perspective, the first choice is, why is he making this so complicated? Right? And again, good coaches, bad coaches, regardless of titles, people do this all the time, right? Just because you're an Olympian doesn't mean you have to make something overly complicated to show how well you know something. Your job as a coach is to get your athletes to be able to do it quickly. So what information do they need, and what information can you leave out? You may be able to give more information to a higher rank than you can a lower rank because of their ability to ignore the stuff that they already know and take in the stuff that they need to remember in order to be better at the technique. And I guarantee you, if you try this, you will realize how difficult it is. And you'll wonder why it's taking you so long to progress through judo or jiu-jitsu, because it's your ability to remember the information that your coaches are trying to relay to you. So that's like my pro tip here. Good coach can articulate stuff to you in a way that you can remember and that you can actually do once you go back to like training or doing whatever it is you're doing, right? As a coach, one of the things I always ask all my athletes, and they always think I'm crazy for it, right? Judo or jiu-jitsu. I walk up to them and I go, what the hell are you thinking? Like, what are you really trying to do? Tap, tap. Tap, tap. You can't do that. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Tap, tap. No, you're being bad. You're being bad. You can't have that. My dog is eating the manual. Can't do that. He's bored because I haven't been playing with him. Can't let him do that. Bring him on the show to say hi. All right, come here, Tap Tap. Come here, buddy. Good boy. Come here. Yep, feet up. Okay. There he is. There we go. There's the puppy. Oh, he's heavy. He's got to go on a diet. Anyways, so back what I was saying. Sasaki, yeah. It's simple certification coaches. I remember when his name is Trapper, and we call him Tap Tap for short. No, go to your spot. Good boy. There are just tons of like little nuances to coaching and getting people to listen and knowing when to give information and when to back off and when to let it sink in. I remember I've gotten into arguments with athletes because they're like, you're not watching enough. All you're doing is drinking coffee on the side of the mat. Nah. And I'm like, I coach you in the morning. I coach you twice a week. On the other 2 nights of the week where you're just trying to train, I have to let you train. I can't interrupt you every time I see something wrong because at some point you have to actually try enough times to gather enough information to see where the problem lies. A lot of athletes think, well, it didn't work, so I have to make an adjustment. No, you have to get stronger at the movement. What does that mean, Doug? How many super chats to get tats? What does that mean? See, I get the idea behind a notebook, okay? But the idea, so here's his thing, right? Let's add this over here, right? The idea, I learned early in my days to have a notebook and take notes. I have years of notebooks of teaching gi and nogi classes after judo and blah, 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 blah. So I get it. That's like step number 1. The problem that a lot of people have, remember, there are different levels of things, right? Where like you have to progress. I also started with a notebook. I remember getting in fierce battles with people overseas in Europe, and then I would run off the mat dripping sweat, and I'd be writing down on a sheet of paper, and I'd be flipping the page, and I'd be scribbling it, and it was like Dr. Chicken Scratch. And then you'd go back to read it, and the paper's all wrinkled because you're dripping sweat everywhere. I remember sometimes I had trouble tape because my fingers were all taped together, and they're shaking, right? And you're trying to write, but you can't really hold the pencil, and it's just like, some of it was illegible. But you're trying. And the idea is you're training your mind to actually recall what has happened. The problem that 95% of people run into with this method is they don't practice the act of weaning themselves off of it. Right? And that's what I did. And that's why I got good at jiu-jitsu so quickly, because early on in my judo days, it was just like that. Grab a notebook, write it down, remember it. After every practice, write down everything that happened as much as you can. You're just trying to train your mind to remember, right? No matter how tired you get, you can recall it, right? You can remember what happened and what went wrong and how it went wrong and what went right and why it went right so that you can recreate it. But then if you don't ever wean yourself off of it, think about all that time that is wasted actually writing. What if you actually trained your mind to wean yourself off that notebook so that when you just look at something being taught, boom, it's embedded in your memory and you're done. You can recall it. And I had that skill when I started jiu-jitsu from judo. So when John would teach something, try it a few times to figure out the mechanics, do it during live training, no problems, no questions asked. So you have to use it as a tool, but the tool has an end game where you're just looking at it. And again, that higher level of coaching, right? Just because you're an Olympian doesn't mean you have that information to give an athlete that says, hey, write it in a notebook. Hey, what'd you do? Can you repeat it? Yep. You know why you can repeat it? Because I was going to make you write it in a notebook earlier, huh? That's the idea, is get off the notebook idea just so that you can recall the information at any point in time, years to come. Right? You don't want to go find an old notebook from 5 years ago to remember the technique your coach showed you. You want to be able to just pull it out of your head and be able to teach it, do it, use it in a live scenario. Remember, it's not about all the information you know. It's about the information you can recall while under stress. You know, the other problem too is a lot of coaches try this. Here's a kicker. Try this. Try to close your eyes when your coach is coaching and see if you can visualize what it is he's doing. Or is he giving like abstract instructions like grab here, move over there, or right here, or like this, where it's not actually defining what it is he is actually doing so that you actually know and how you can tell your body to do something. Because when you're learning, if you've done something for the first time and you think it feels right, you screwed it up. Because judo and jiu-jitsu is a foreign movement, right? Everything we do is foreign. Nobody moves like this naturally. Right? Like nobody just lays an X guard and rolls over their back shoulder with a partner to sweep them. Like that's all foreign. So it should feel a little off. But anyways, I think I've ranted enough for today. I think we're going on an hour and a half. And we kind of got off the Olympic rant a little bit. But hopefully that just like opened your eyes a little bit to not thinking of like what titles have my coaches won. You think more of like what athletes have they produced, and would I like to mimic what those athletes have produced, right? Or, you know, how well can he convey the information, and what is my coach doing to become a better coach? Because the last thing you want to have happen is your coach just be stagnant, right? Like inability to learn, and they've been teaching the same thing time and time again, day in, day out, same practice. You might as well just get a sensei in a box and set a time clock and go. I don't think there is a max age, but I think the oldest Olympian in history is like 56, and maybe it was shooting, maybe. I don't know. I feel like that's a Google question or like a Hey Siri question. Jason Wong, I'm glad you like the rants because they equal truths. I remember when I pitched USA Judo for the job as the under-23 coach, and they told me that I wasn't qualified, and I was like, hey, go find somebody that is. Right? Go find somebody is. I said, here's my plan. Here's what I would do if I was the coach. Here's everything I would want to accomplish. Here's how I would accomplish it. If you can find somebody that has a better plan, hire them so I know what you're looking for, and I'll come for the job in a few years. And then, you know, they didn't hire anybody, so I can't go get a job that doesn't exist. So here I am on YouTube in the free virtual dojo for everybody. Judo, jiu-jitsu, ranting, talking, doesn't matter. Here we go. And hopefully the audio is better, because now I have like a little mic here. I'm glad you guys like the videos. If you guys have any ideas, because a lot of my video content I don't actually think up. I steal from you guys in the comments, and I try to answer those. So if you guys have any ideas on videos that you'd like to see, shoot them my way. I would love to see them. Wow, it's 10 o'clock at night. I haven't had dinner yet. Whew. Yeah, that was kind of the idea, to just like have a core topic of just, you know, why I don't put any weight or validation into being an Olympian when we talk about who really knows judo or who's good at judo, right? Because there's so many other factors that go into it. And also, we didn't talk about this, right? To go back to that rant, you know, the qualification, when I qualified for the Olympic Games in 2008, was a joke. It was, I think it was the top 6 in the Pan Am Union got to go for men, right? Top 6 in the Pan Am Union. And there was like a Pan Am tour. But basically, if you medaled at the Pan Am Games both times, because there were 2 per year, and at the Pan Am Games, so Pan Am Championships were held twice, and the Pan Am Games were held. They basically had like a weird little tour where you could get enough points only within the Pan Am Union, and the top 6 people in the Pan Am Union got to go to the Olympics. Well, at the Pan Ams, there's only like 12 people at the entire tournament, and you had to be 6th because it went by country, right? So there weren't that many actual competitive countries at the time. So qualifying for the Olympic Games was a breeze. Like, you could qualify before 2008, right? Before the 2008 era, you could qualify for the Olympic Games, never medaling in Europe, never medaling at the Worlds, never beating a European athlete, right? None of it mattered. You never had to medal in Asia. You never had to fight a Japanese player. You never had to fight a French player. You solely qualified for the Olympic Games based on your Pan American points and your actual like trials inside the United States. And the kicker being whoever topped 5 at the World Championships the year before the Olympics was an automatic shoo-in, right? So when I qualified for the games in 2008, I was the number 1 ranked 81 kilo athlete, which was by the US standards, right? So it wasn't my name. It was just United States. We had enough points in the 81 kilo time slot because of my points and all the other 81 kilo guys in the US that were competing at the time. We were number 1. But we weren't number 1 because we had the most points. We were number 1 because Brazil, I think it was Thiago, had actually bronzed or won the Worlds in 2007 at 81 kilos. So he went into like a little gray box that said, hey, he directly qualified for the Olympics, the country, because he top 5. Which means we got 7 people at the Olympic Games in 2008 because 1 was a direct qualification. So how hard is it really to qualify for the Olympic Games, and how much weight does that really carry when you start talking about how good you really are? Right? You were essentially less than 50% of the Pan Am Union to qualify. You just had to be above or at that 50% mark in order to qualify. The girls, on the other hand, that's a different story because the girls had to be top 3 in the Pan Am Union. And when you throw in Cuba, Brazil, the US, Canada, plus a couple of the one-off countries that had really talented players, qualifying was extremely difficult, which is reflected by when you look at the US team. Like when I went in 2008, we sent the full men's team, 60 through plus hundreds. But we sent 3 females. Because qualifying as a female, like you had to beat like legitimate players. You could qualify for the Olympic Games having no Pan American medal, no European medal, no Asian medal, no world medal, but you could qualify for the Olympic Games. That's insane. So going back on my rant, had the times been moved down a little bit, where like the qualification today was put into 2008, I never would have made that Olympic Games. I wasn't that good. But because of the system, I got to get my feet wet in 2008, and I got to experience the Olympics so that I was better suited for a good performance in 2012 when I was actually a top 8 player in the world, where I actually qualified for the Olympic Games, 8 in the world. And I beat the world number 1 at the 2008 or 2012 Olympics, who was actually from the Pan Am Union, believe it or not. So yeah, you will be the next Joe Rogan of the grappling judo BJJ space. I don't know about that. That's a stretch. That's a stretch. But who knows? Anything's possible. We'll see how much the community likes to listen to me rant. I don't know. Are we done now? I just went on another rant. I'm not really sure. I've had like 12 cups of coffee today, so not sure. But I am getting hungry and I have no food in my office, so that's not good. Kind of have to go to bed now. You do you. Keep ranting. I don't know. What should I rant about? What should the next? Because I don't think I can do the live workout tomorrow, guys, because I have a cord situation. I don't know if it's going to come from Amazon. It might come on Wednesday due to the whole COVID thing, and like the Prime memberships aren't shipping because it's not essential. So what should we rant about tomorrow? There we go. Let's talk about that. Before we leave here, let's decide on a topic to rant about tomorrow. You're welcome, Sasaki. You want to watch till the end of the stream? Have you taught military any judo self-defense? Yes, I have. I taught some Rangers some self-defense stuff because I'm from Washington and there's a military base there. I need food next time. Maybe I'll bring a cake to the office and try not to eat it all day, and I'll just eat an entire cake while we talk and rant about martial arts. How does that sound? Maybe we can bake a funfetti cake, which is my favorite, and we'll just rant judo and I'll eat cake. That sounds like a great plan. Old guys should train safely. Oh, there's a topic. I love it. Here we go. Wait, I gotta put this on screen. Here's the topic for tomorrow. Right here. Here we go. The topic is USA, USJA improvements. He put USAJA twice, but I think he meant JFs. But let's do this. Let's talk about all the different problems inside USA Judo and how I think they should be handled and fixed and why. That'll be the topic for tomorrow. I cannot wait to make this thumbnail. And I'm going to eat cake while we do it because I love cake. I don't care about healthy. I'm retired and I get to be fat. So on that, tomorrow, we're talking improvements in USA Judo, problems I see, solutions I had, why I got that rejected, why the community is kind of terrible. Who cares about winning 2 matches, Byron? Like, why are we setting our sights so low? Winning 2 matches. What does that do for anybody? That's like the whole Olympic thing. Like, put it on a pedestal like it's something great to accomplish. Reach further. But let's do it. I'm going to sign off. We have a topic for tomorrow. Make sure you guys send it out to all your people. Let's get a ton of people here to talk about this. Let's do it. It'll be fun. Maybe I can convince Colton to actually jump on here and let's discuss it with an athlete who is actually going through the system. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe I'll do it by myself so he doesn't get in trouble. That might be what we have to do because he's actually a salaried person. We don't want to get him in trouble. But I can't get in trouble. Oh, Jack, you can't wait. I love it. But that's it for today, guys. Tomorrow, talking USA Judo, the problems in the United States, why Judo is going down, and I'm going to do it all while eating a cake. Let's do it. This is going to be fun. I love it. Here we go. You're going to see me get heated. I might have to actually dial down the volume so I might start screaming. This will be fun, though. But that's it for tonight, everybody. I'll see you guys tomorrow.